2 days, that's how long he's gone without eating. He found the herd, tracked it all morning, got close enough to smell it, spear up, and then the sky just opens. Rain, all day, all night. Another gray morning, still coming down. Now the tracks are gone, washed clean off the ground. The dirt's turned to swamp and he's barefoot. One twisted ankle out there and he's a dead man. The river's climbing. His fire's hissing, fighting for its life. He is not bored. He is trapped. Because for almost all of human history, rain wasn't cozy. Rain was a crisis. And what people did while they were stuck inside waiting it out might be the entire reason you exist. Here's you and rain. Blanket, coffee, something dumb on a screen. The sound of it on the window is basically a lullaby. You'll be asleep in 20 minutes. Rain, for you, is a whole vibe. A soft focus, stay in bed, light a candle kind of day. Same exact sound. 50,000 years ago. Except back then, that gentle little patter on the leaves wasn't a lullaby. It was a killer, and it had 3 completely different ways to get you. Killer number 1, cold. Your whole body is basically a machine for holding one temperature, and water pulls heat out of you around 25 times faster than air does. 25. So the second you're soaked to the skin, you're bleeding warmth at a rate a dry body never would. And these people had nothing. No raincoat, no wool socks, no waterproof anything. Soaked through in air just under 50 degrees, hypothermia can take you in a matter of hours. And here's the part everyone forgets. Even in Africa, up in the hills, the nights got exactly that cold. Wet plus dark equals a countdown. Killer number 2, the water comes to you. Think about where these shelters actually are. Caves and rock overhangs sit low, at the bottom of hills, right up against rivers, which is perfect. Right until it rains for 3 days somewhere upstream. Flash flood, and this isn't me guessing. Archaeologists dig down through these cave floors and hit whole layers of flood mud sitting right on top of where people were living. Same cave. And some of those caves, nobody ever lived in them again. The flood didn't just ruin one night, it ended the whole address. Killer number 3, and this one's nasty. You are not the only one who wants out of the rain. Every animal on that whole landscape is hunting for the exact same thing you are, a dry room, including the ones with teeth. At cave sites in South Africa, the bones of our early relatives turn up in the very same layers as big cat bones, the same floor. And there's one famous little skull, a child's, with 2 neat holes punched in the top of it. 2 holes, perfectly spaced, to match the lower fangs of a leopard. They even found a leopard's jaw in the same deposit that fit the bite. Those caves weren't only shelters. Sometimes they were somebody else's pantry. Rain took the whole wide open world and squeezed it down into a couple of dry rooms, and you had to share them. So job 1, before literally anything else, the fire. And here's what people get wrong about it. Yes, humans have kept fire going for an absurdly long time. There's a hearth in a cave in Israel used over and over around 300,000 years ago, and hints of fire maybe a million years back in a South African cave. But keeping a fire and starting one from scratch are 2 totally different skills. Most people, most of the time, probably could not spark one on demand. So if your fire drowned in the rain, you might not get it back, ever. Which is why they got very, very good at carrying it. Tuck a live ember into damp green leaves, or into a lump of tinder fungus that quietly smolders for hours. A living, breathing lighter, and this habit runs deep and stubborn. Ötzi, the Iceman, frozen up in the Alps more than 5,000 years ago, was found carrying a full fire kit. Tinder fungus, flint, iron pyrite, the whole thing. Fire insurance, he never left home without it. Now keeping that fire lit through a downpour is its own real craft. You move it deeper under cover. You rig hides overhead like an umbrella. You know the dead branches stay bone dry underneath a pine tree. You split a soaked log open because the core inside is still perfect. You peel birch bark, which, thanks to a natural oil in it, actually catches even when it's wet. Little bit of magic, that one. And somebody's whole job is just sitting with it, feeding it, the fire sitter. Because that fire is everything at once. Heat, light, safety, the kitchen, and the only spot warm enough for the whole group to gather. It's the living room, and nobody, ever, lets the living room go out. Okay, you're dry, the fire's up, and you cannot leave. So what do you do with all those hours? You make things. And this is where it gets genuinely amazing. Dig into these cave floors and you find manufacturing. Piles of stone chips clustered in the exact spot where somebody sat by the fire, chipping away at tools. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, 100,000 years ago, someone was running an actual workshop, grinding up red ochre pigment. mixing it in abalone shell bowls, using little bone tools to work it. Not a mess, a system, a recipe. They were also drilling eyes into bone needles around 60,000 years ago. And listen, you do not carefully drill a hair-thin hole through a needle while you're sprinting across a field after a gazelle. That is a sit-down job. That is a rainy day job. And then there's the quiet little invention that changed absolutely everything. String. At a Neanderthal site in France, they pulled out the oldest scrap of cord we have ever found. Fibers stripped from tree bark, twisted one direction, then twisted together the other way. Real, deliberate technique. Somewhere between 40 and 50,000 years old. And in Germany, at a cave called Hohlefels, they found a carved piece of mammoth ivory, around 40,000 years old, with 4 holes and spiral grooves cut into it. A dedicated tool for making rope. Somebody sat down and built themselves a rope machine. Why does string matter so much? String ties your shelter together. String is the snare that catches your dinner while you sleep. String binds the sharp stone onto the spear. And string was almost certainly dreamed up by somebody with nothing better to do than sit and twist fiber while it rained. Now here's my favorite detail, because it's just so human. At Sibudu Cave, 77,000 years ago, they made beds. Actual bedding. Thick layered mats of grass and sedge. And on top of the mat, leaves from one specific tree, a wild quince, whose leaves just so happen to work as a natural bug repellent. They picked that leaf, on purpose, and every so often they'd burn off the old bedding and lay down a fresh batch. Prehistoric pest control, and honestly, spring cleaning. Sit with what that means for a second. They weren't just surviving in there, gritting their teeth till the sun came back. They were tidying up. They were making the place nice. They were living. And once you've got dry hours and firelight, something brand new shows up. Art. At Chauvet in France, 36,000 years ago, someone drew horses and lions with real anatomy and real motion. Animals that genuinely look like they're moving across the rock. Over in Indonesia, on the island of Sulawesi, there's a whole painted scene. A wild pig with 3 little human figures crowding in around it. That's at least 50,000 years old. The oldest picture of real things we have ever found anywhere on Earth. And here's the detail that gets me. These paintings mostly aren't up at the nice lit entrance. They're deep inside, down crawl spaces, in total darkness, by the light of one little fat-burning lamp. Nobody bellies into a pitch-black tunnel to paint on a gorgeous, sunny hunting day. That whole creative explosion lives exactly where people got stuck. I can't prove the rain did it, but man, the logic lines up. Now put 15, 30 people in one dry room together for days on end. What happens? You talk. And we actually have a clue what all that talking does. An anthropologist named Polly Wiesner recorded conversations among the Juhwanzi people in the Kalahari. During the daytime, the talk was practical. Work, complaints, who did what to whom. But at night, around the fire, about 80% of it turned into stories, songs, the big stuff. That firelight circle was the original social network. It's where knowledge got handed down, where the water is, which plants will kill you, where the good stone is buried. Every culture on Earth has its rain myths, and the memory runs deeper than you'd believe. Some Aboriginal Australian stories describe coastlines that flooded over 7,000 years ago. Real events, carried across all that time by nothing but people retelling them, night after night. Rain didn't stop the day, it cleared the schedule for passing down everything you know. But here's the twist. Rain wasn't only the enemy. Rain was also a gift. Because the second it stops, the whole world turns generous. Fresh mud is the best tracking surface on the planet. Every animal that walks leaves a crisp, perfect print you can read like a map. Rainwater pools up in the rock hollows near camp. Some groups deepen those basins on purpose. Free water storage. Mushrooms pop up overnight. Tubers slide out of the soft ground easy. Insects climb to the surface. And after a really good soaking, the termites swarm. Thick clouds of them. Pure protein you literally pick up with your bare hands. Chimps still feast on them exactly like this today. Rain didn't shut off the food supply. It just swapped the menu. So, what did they actually do when it rained for a solid week? Everything that mattered. They kept the fire alive. They made the tools. They sewed the clothes. They twisted the rope. They ground the pigment. They told the stories that held the entire group together. And then they walked out onto soft, fresh ground covered in perfect tracks, and they went hunting. The downtime built us. Every single rainy day, stuck inside a cave, they didn't get bored. They got creative. And that, more than the spear, more than the fire itself, might be the biggest single reason we're still here. So next time it rains all week and you're going a little stir-crazy, just remember, you come from a very long line of people who did their best work indoors.